You ever bought a stock and the second you buy it, it just goes down?
Do they ever go up?
I mean, occasionally, but you know that feeling where it's like you just whatever. Let's just say you threw 10 grand into something and you lose like $500 in like 10 minutes, and you get that like sinking feeling in your stomach, like really? Imagine losing 20 billion. What is
Oh,
that kind of?
dude.
What does that feel like? Oh man, like your life just came to an end.
Yeah.
Oh, when I first heard about this, I think this has been going on for a little while. My first thought was Enron, and
Interesting.
yeah, I'm not sure he even did anything shady. It's just that when you see these massive losses that no one's seen coming, and if you read that the book, the book or the movie Smartest Guys in the Room or whatever, some of that stuff, and some of the things that they were doing that like mark to market accounting to prop things up and booking not fully realized future gains into profit, like all the shit they're doing to just prop stuff up.
Yeah.
And that kind of led to like some bad things coming for the whole market. Is this kind of the warning sign of this is like the first warning shot, right? There's another dude out there just like him that's doing this,
Mm.
or
Yep.
5 or 10 that we don't know about. Have you ever heard about this fucking guy before this happened?
No, not at all.
Like, now that I'm out looking for these people, but I never heard of this fucking guy.
Yeah, right.
And he was doing a lot of stuff that it's not really on the books because he was doing like full swaps or something. There's like some trick to the game, right? Things that you and I are not really privy to.
Mm.
So it's like, who else is out there doing this? And we don't even know there's billions and billions and billions of dollars is moving around and getting bet against things, and we don't know until this shit blows up, right?
Yeah.
Um, there's got to be someone else. He's not the only one, and you just wonder, is this the? They always say like fraud tends to go up before a crash, and I'm not saying this is fraud, by the way,
Mm.
but a lot of like kind of strange things start to happen before a crash happens. Is this that first indication of what's on the horizon when you start seeing like people are so levered to making such large bets?
Yeah.
And it's not that one's going to like trigger the domino effect. It's just a feeling of the greater market of the things that are these underlying issues that we're not aware of. And they usually all kind of blow up at once when the market crashes. And my first thought when I saw this was like the feeling when Enron happened and then kind of what happened in the market afterwards, right? So a little
Yeah.
concerning. A
Yeah. No,
little concerning.
as you're saying that, I'm reading particularly these two sentences here. Like, I just cannot. It says, yeah, his family office boasted holdings of 120 billion, and now they're lining up for the scraps. My gosh.
Yeah, I saw I remember when it first happened, and it went from XYZ dude loses 10 billion, and then I saw 2 days later the story turns to 20 billion. And I've seen 20 billion a lot. And then I saw 30 billion at some point in someone else's article. And it's like, well, do they even know how much money this dude lost? Um,
Right.
and you realize like what he had access, he was probably toying with, under 120 billion dollars. He's moving around out there like fuck. Um, but he's not the only one.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There might be $1 trillion out there right now that's at risk from guys like this, and it may they kind of gave you that feeling that after the 2008 would never happen again
Right.
because they put so much regulation into place, and it's like, well, they always find ways to do really creative things. And then here it is, here's a guy that's able to go do all this and whatever. It seems like, well, these banks took the risk and they lent them the money and they did all these things. But the problem is like when those the too big to fail thought, right?
Yep.
when the bank loses too much and then it poses a risk to the economy, and then like the bank's going to get bailed out. It's they probably put more regulations in place, but it still seems like there's a whole lot of fuckery going on that we don't know about. Open to the blow up. Like I'm curious to see did he do something illegal? I don't know the whole story. I just that instant feeling of like Enron.
Yeah.
And I'm not again. It's not Enron. They did some shady shit. I'm not saying he did shady stuff. I don't know that about the story. It's just when you see massive losses that no one's seen coming, it doesn't give you a good feeling right now.
Yeah. Right.
Because I start thinking about how many other people are doing this right now. And that's usually a sign of when the markets start getting really crazy and really irrational, and the more crazy and the more irrational they get, it's usually the bigger. And was this the warning shot? I don't know. But this dude is cooked.
My goodness. My goodness.
Did you ever catch any of the Enron stuff?
No, I mean I've watched a couple documentaries on it and stuff, but I've also but no, not really.
Okay. They're moving money around shell companies. I think they were doing like weather futures at some point and high speed internet access. Like they were trying to find any way possible. I want to say they were involved in they were purposely bringing down power plants around or in California to drive the price of energy way up so they could make more money. I think that might have been from the movie or the book. I don't know which one where that stuff came from. But you realize they were doing like anything to because they think they were probably so over leveraged. They made so many other bets that they had to do something, because if this one bet failed, then the whole fucking thing implodes. So you keep doing crazier and crazier and crazier shit.
Yeah.
And maybe this guy didn't actually do anything wrong, but maybe he just made one bad investment and it was a domino that collapsed the whole fucking thing, right? Mm-hmm. Or you start digging yourself a hole and you got to keep doing that next crazy thing to keep that hole from fucking caving in on you. But it's like, I remember reading, what was it? Daniel Pink wrote a book. Might have been called Drive. It's a book by Daniel Pink. I'm probably screwing the title up, but I read a couple of his books. Who knows what the title is, but he talks about, and this was what, when I started my recruiting company, the very first one, now we own a handful. We did what everyone else did, and that was like the base and commission type shit, right? And I never felt that worked that great, but it's what everyone in the industry was used to. That was the normal. And whatever book it was from him I read, he talks about like getting off that model, and it's giving someone a fair salary where they can pay their bills and they can live. And then you figure out if they really do not just do your job, but you go above and beyond and you do well. Like you got to do well, Kane. Like you can't just say, I'm going to bonus you a bunch of money because you showed up to work every day.
Right.
Give them a fair salary so they can live and pay their bills and do well. And if they kill it, you bonus them. Mm-hmm. Because his point was on commission. So again, what usually works is like you're allowed to draw like 3 months of money, and then the check stops coming. And then if you're not billing and getting commissions, then you don't get no money. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes your commissions have to pay back to draw. So you're in like your 5th month, you don't have a draw anymore, and you got your spouse and kids at home that need to be fed and bills to be paid and a house mortgage payment, and you're not making any money. What do you think people start doing?
Leverage?
I mean, leverage, or you start doing shady things.
Okay.
And that was his whole point, is if you kind of get your back's against the wall, and then you might lie to a client. You might overpromise something. You might cheat a little bit over here to try to game the system, because look, when you're forced to like provide for your family and your kids and keep your house, you start doing terrible shit.
I see.
And his thought was, you can like end all these dumb things that people do when their backs against the wall just by getting rid of the commission. You allow people to just go to sleep at night and not worry about shit. And I think that's what I see going on here is what concerns me. Is this is when you start seeing shit blow up like this, it's because people had their back against the wall and they start making really bad fucking decisions, okay?
I see.
And then that was Enron too. Things were working at some point and then they got themselves in the mess, so they had to start doing even crazier shit to try to keep it all from falling apart. I'm just curious if this guy really just made a bad bet or two, or I think some funding came out on one of the positions he was against and it blew up. I don't know the whole story. Or was he already in a bad spot, so he was taking on significantly more risk because he needed those things to pay off. Otherwise, something bad decision he made 3 trades ago was going to unravel the whole goddamn thing.
Right,
and like
right.
what I'm getting at is when people get to the point where we start doing this shit, this is usually when the whole goddamn thing falls apart.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not just him. The system has allowed people to kind of get out of control. We start taking on these crazy risks and bigger bets, and this is how we collapse ourselves again. That's what happened in 2008, right? Derivatives, CDOs, mortgage-backed security. We just run with it, and we maximize it while we can. But when it blows up, holy shit, does it blow up? And I'm worried there's 5 other guys out there like him that have started doing that, my back's against the wall type of shit. And then when all those things implode, it's like in our financial system take $1 trillion hit.
So what do you look for then? Like what would be the next domino to fall that you think would then, okay, you're really concerned now?
I'm looking for, I need to read more about this whole story because a lot of times I feel like they talk about this one bad trade that went on, and I think someone else raised some capital. I don't know the whole story, but I don't think anybody knows the whole fucking story with this right now.
Yeah.
So I want to figure out once all the investigation's done and you find out what really went wrong. Like he might have had one big bet that went wrong because of some other bad shit that was going on.
Right.
That's what I want to find out. Was this really just one big bad trade, or did he have a whole thing that he was trying to dig himself out of? And then I'm looking for other things that are concerning that could be a trigger. Real estate's concerning to me. What happened to the landlords when in the eviction moratorium and whatnot, the amount of strain that put on the real estate, at least the residential side, and then the amount of strain that was put on the commercial side of real estate because of no one's working in the office anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw the people that had like return to work plans for this fall. A lot of companies are starting to change that, the big companies.
Right.
And what you're going to see happening is, in commercial real estate, you often have to sign a 7 or 10 year lease. Sometimes you can get away with 3 or 5. And you're kind of stuck in those. That's how you bring stability to commercial real estate. But Kane, as time goes on, all those 5 and 7 and 10 year leases are going to come up. And what happens when people don't start renewing them as much? So I'm concerned there's going to be something else that kind of sets this off, where there's a big collapse on like commercial real estate. And then there's 5 of these guys out there that got some of the wrong bets, and then the whole thing kind of falls apart.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe 5 of these guys managing $1 trillion could blow it up, or there could be some sector that there's got to be some trigger point, right? It's just, what is that trigger point?
Yeah.
What's going to set off that domino effect? And we might see 3 or 4 little things, and they're just warning signs. This might just be a warning sign. I hate even saying $20 billion is a little sign, but in the grand scheme of things, in $1 trillion of money that's getting traded and moved, right? 20 billion is not a tremendous amount of money, but he was dealing with up to 120 billion.
Yeah.
And you get 5 or 10 of these guys together, and then some other bad news. But I'm looking for something that like could hurt a lot of people, such as a commercial real estate collapse or some other industry taking on a massive amount of pain. And I think that's what could really trigger things. I've not seen a lot yet. It's just, I think we always look back and say, man, I should have knew that then. And right now we might just treat this might just be a one-off case, okay? And it might be nothing. The guy made some bad mistakes. We keep blazing for the next 5 years, market's good. Or shit blows up in the next 12 months and we go back and say, oh, man, it was staring us right in the face.
Right.
That should have been the first sign that things are starting to get a little out of control. And the thing is, you don't know until after. It's like you never know when you're in it until after you've been through it. When you look back to 07, 08, 09, like when stuff started to happen, you knowing now, you look back at those signs and you're like, well, you kind of seen it starting to happen. But it wasn't until like the market crashed and we're like, oh shit. And you're like, wow, that just happened.
Yeah.
It's just, that's how it goes. So we got this one on record though. We can sit here and say, well, maybe we saw something. Maybe this is a one-off case, but we're gonna find out. I got not a whole lot to add. I kept seeing this thing pop up. It's something I wanted to talk about real quick. I know you're not really digging into this one, but I'm just curious, listen to myself like a year from now and go, well, did your dumbass see it? You didn't do anything? Or yeah, it's how it always is. Like you see these investments that go up or go down and you had a feeling, but then you kind of brush it off, right? And then like 6 months later, you check back in and you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
I just crazy times, irrational markets. I'm looking for anything right now. Kane, you know how many people keep trying to like eye mortgage defaults because that's how they kind of, what was it, Michael Burry or whatever, kind of caught the last crash. It's like they're looking for those signs, and I think that's probably not going to be the sign this time. It's going to be a different sign. And
yeah,
it's just like, can you find that sign? And you might find it, but it just might not hit home right now. And I'm just curious. 12, 24 months from now, was this one of the first signs?
Yeah.
We shall see.
We shall see.
I will catch it though. That's all I got.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah.